Kent Stone, I'm sure most of you know. He's must have about 28 hours in the day, I think. He's an agronomist, farmer and a family man, bloody good at all of them. And just, yeah, thanks very much, Kent, for presenting this for us.
Thanks, Craig. Rightio, so what I've been asked to do today is just make a few comments on the agronomy of the cropping challenge over the last 3 years. So if anyone's got any other comments or observations to make, feel free to jump in. This is just my opinion and how I've seen things, so yeah, others may see it differently. So is everyone familiar with the cropping challenge, how it works? Anyone that hasn't been in any one of these days for a while? Cropping challenge is pretty much teams are formed that need to make all the decisions around growing a crop, from nutrition, pest control, the sowing variety, date, seeding rate, right through to the grain marketing at the other end, and the aim is of the competition is to grow the most profitable crop. So the site is just north of Katanning town site on the Wagen Road. On the left there it's quite sort of flat, low-lying country. The soil tests for the site are here. So from the soil test results, the main three things that I sort of took from them is that the pH is getting lowish at sort of 4.7, 4.8. So yeah, lime would have benefited teams, I would have thought. It's definitely P responsive with Colwell P's around 13. So that would, I think, New Logic and Nutriscription, any of those soil testing software would probably spit out a recommendation around 18 units of P. And the other thing that I think a couple of teams missed out on, especially in the canola year in year one, was sulphur. That's quite low there, around 5 and below. And I reckon we did see some sulphur responses. There was also nematodes noted in year one, which were tested, and there was quite high numbers there. So, but I almost, like my observation is that the teams that had higher fertiliser regimes, their nematodes didn't seem to bother them as much. So, and they seem to be worse in year one. So I don't know if a bit of cultivation on a long-term pasture, followed by a bit more grass control, would have settled them down a bit. But yeah, they seem to rear their heads pretty badly in year one and then settle down after that. On the weeds, it was pretty typical long-term pasture. There was just crappy grasses like barley grass and silvergrass and geranium. There was some nasty radish in a couple of plots that yeah, sort of hung around if it wasn't sprayed properly. But yeah, the weeds were pretty simple. And the insects were controlled by Calyx pretty well. In 2019, there was a bit of early bug damage on canola, so on, that didn't have adequate seed treatment on it. So yeah, I think Borrobiumite was the biggest one from memory. Yeah, and then the other challenge about the site was that it was being long-term pasture. It was quite tight to get into in that first year. So I think I remember, must have been the end of March in 2000, or the first year, they had an inch of rain over there, and I thought, oh, this will definitely be wet now, good to go, because it was going into canola, and went and had a dig, and it was still dry as a chip. So the rainfall records were, they weren't that disastrous, but the site was thirsty, so it needed a lot to wet it up. And that also meant that the seeding opportunities, there was only really one seeding opportunity each year, which was quite late on average. So yeah, that was limited it a bit, but yeah, it sort of levelled all the teams up, but it worked well anyway. So this slide here, I've just put together my recipe on how to win the cropping challenge. Not that I've done it, but this is what, just based on my analysis of what people have done over the last 3 years, what I think the winning teams would have done. So as I mentioned, it was P responsive, so I think teams that put good rates of P out did well. nitrogen, being a long-term pasture, there was still good nitrogen responses, especially where there was high yields. Sulphur in canola was a big one that, a couple tripped up on the first year. I don't think the weed control needed to be fancy. I just think you could get away by keeping your costs under control with the weeds. And I think farming to district practice or standard and not doing anything too outrageous helped. So pretty much not overspending on fungicides, excess nutrition or weed control, in my opinion, was a good strategy. Also, selecting a crop types suited to the season. And in these 3 seasons, it essentially would have been shorter season varieties. And as we'll see in the current results, probably wasn't a good canola year. And also growing crop types that, according to market indications, so wherever you thought you were going to get good marketing dollars, certainly paid off as well. So before we get into the presentations of the winners, just a few thank yous. Thanks to Emma, Marissa and Sheridan for managing the project over the last 3 years. It'd be a pretty big job toing and froing emails with people changing what their plans are. I don't know how the girls kept up, so they've done a really good job of that. Well done. Southern Dirt is a great concept for letting their members have the opportunity to compete against each other in a competition like this. So thank you, and it's probably a big drain on your resources. Kalex have done a good job of managing the site. Again, it must be hard work mixing up a different brew for every plot, so they've done well there. Dom and Irene Lorino for supplying the site, the sponsors and all the teams that have got involved. Thank you very much. Rightio, so for 2019 was a break crop season, so I think the rules were you were allowed to grow anything that could be harvested by a conventional header that was not wheat or barley. So I guess that essentially ruled out hay because it couldn't be harvested, so we essentially had oats and canola, and we, as you can see there, we had the full suite of canolas. We had Roundup, I don't know if we had, actually, we had TT and IT, no Roundup Ready. And then we also had some vetch and some lentils and oats. Here's a couple of photos from the site during the year. So seeding was on the 23rd of May. You can see photos over there of that. And then harvest was on the 8th of December. Rainfall for the year at Katanning was average 271 mils from April to October, growing season. And as you can see, there was a lot in June, and then it was a pretty tight finish. And that start there, like as I mentioned earlier about the site being quite thirsty, that, what do we have there, 45 mils in March, you'd imagine that would have left a pretty full profile of moisture for April sowing, but yeah, it was still quite dry, so hence the sowing at the end of May. And I think that might have been pretty much dry then as well, but yeah, June got it all underway. Yeah. Rightio, so on to the winners of the awards for 2019. So on the lowest input cost, in third position was QFH and Adama with $277 per hectare spent. Second was the Skirts with $240 per hectare. And the winner of the lowest input cost was Bayer with $239 per hectare. However, I don't know how proud they should be of that because theirs was green manured, so there was no harvest result off that. So, yeah, well done to Bayer. The highest yields for 2019. In third position was Pacific Seeds, so they grew canola, which yielded 1.29 tonnes per hectare, which was quite a jump on the rest of the canola yields. So the old favourite and landmark who've won the last 2 years, pretty dismal this year. And I think the bug damage had a fair bit to do with some of those low canola yields, not that we're making excuses. But yeah, pack seeds did quite well to get a canola result like that. So the two higher yields were both the oat growers. In second place was the sods with 3.4 tonne of oats. And then in first place, drum roll, was the Blackwood Bandits with 3.485 tonne of oats. Do you want to come and accept your trophy, Webby?
Thank you.
Now on to the gross margins, which is the one that matters. In third place was Pacific Seeds with a gross margin of $455 per hectare. In second place was the Sods with a gross margin of $910 per hectare. And in first place once again was the Blackwood Bandits with a gross margin of $957 per hectare.
Yeah, we enjoyed the cropping challenge. We thought it was an opportunity to get a group of blokes out from the area to have a bit of fun. Turns out everyone's pretty busy and it's just hard to get people to come along to the days, but anyway, that's how it is. Sorry, who do you think? Kent, he was our agronomist. Nathaniel Adair, he was our marketing man. Simon Zach, our Nathan Leach, Charlie Boyle and Simon Third.
Rightio, so yeah, that's the winners for this year. So on to the cumulative gross margins for the 3 years. So yeah, there's a bit of a change around here. Like, yeah, obviously Landmark won the first 2 years and they've dropped off pretty dismally down to 4th position. In third position, Pack Seeds, so they had a jump up because they actually made some money in 2019. And then, yeah, it's probably no surprise who the top two are going to be, but the Sons of Dusty Soils have come through in second place. And then in first place was the Blackwood Bandits. Come and grab your trophy, Webby. So, yeah, it all sort of came down to, from what I could, like, well, in 2019 with that break crop, was just where it blew. The good teams that grew oats just blew everyone else out of the water, and that's just made all the difference at the end of the day. So, yeah, I think if teams were a bit more flexible leading into last season with a good-looking oat market, they changed over from what they were thinking to growing oats, they probably all would have done well. So yeah, thank you. Thanks to the sponsors, and hopefully Southern Dirt can do something like this again soon. It's been a great competition. Cheers.
Just tell me the variety of packed seeds canola.
Yeah, I think theirs was 350 TT. Yeah, 350 TT, I think it was. Any other questions or observations anyone's made over the course of the competition?
Sorry. What do you reckon was your secret?
Oh, I probably a bit of luck in the last year with the oat price. It was a bit of a late start too, so we thought we'd try that. And it was a bit of a frosty side. Yeah, we didn't try and spend so much money. In the last cropping challenge, we thought we'd go all out, and we did very well. through. Knowing that sort of standard practice, you can work a bit better.
Yeah, and I think that's the first competition when Koji Ag Supplies took it out. They were sort of always just there. I don't think they ever actually took out blew anyone out of the water in any one year, but they were always around about the money. So, yeah.
What happened to the lentils? Did they not get harvested?
Sheridan?
They did, but there wasn't enough seed to go to CDH for analysis.
So did you get it quoted to the yield there?
I think it was like 50 kilos or something. Yeah, it was.
And what else was there? Was the vetch didn't get harvested, is that right?
The vetch did get harvested, but it went like back into the ground. So it was like,
Oh, that was the Bayer one. Was
Green Manure,
Green Manure or something. So.
and they got off, I think, like 500 kilos. And they were actually, if you go back a few slides, they're on, I'm pretty sure they're on there. Just highest yield, yes. So that was their yield there.
All right, no more questions. Thanks very much, Kent, and thanks, Webby. Drug testing next year too, I think. But no, that's the end of this cropping challenge for a little while. We might revisit in the future, but it was a really good competition to sort of let Southern Dirt engage with the ag professionals. It worked well.